Next up is what's eating Gilbert Grape? Well, what's eating him is that there's no Blu-ray release of the movie. That's such a stupid joke. Hi guys, Geek264 here, and today I'm going to talk about some movies that still have not been released on Blu-ray. Now, Blu-rays have been around since 2006, and there are many older movies that have never been released on that format. Some have HD upgrades that can only be seen on stream platforms, while others have never had the HD restoration. And there's a variety of reasons for this, specific to each title as to why we haven't seen an actual Blu-ray physical release. And I could, and I may, do a video on the Blu-ray HD DVD format wars, because I have a lot to say about that, but we'll save that for another video. In this video, I'm going to focus on some movies that I personally want to see released on Blu-ray. My list is based on North American releases, so there are a couple of these movies that did see a Blu-ray release in other regions, but for whatever reason, were not released here in North America. As to why, I'm not 100% sure. But that's what happened. Most of these movies are kind of nostalgia picks, I guess, for me, but some are just really great movies that need a physical HD release, and I'm still shocked that we haven't got one. So these are in no particular order. I'm just going to go through them and talk about them. Without further delay, let's jump right into this. So, Wild America. This was actually the first movie on my list when I was making this list, but as you can tell, because it's in my hand, it was just released. It was just released this year in 2020. It's on my shelf and it's in my hand. Wild America. I love this movie. This movie was just about this group of kids, well, these three brothers that go out and want to shoot animals, like with a camera, not with a gun. I don't know. Growing up, I just loved this. It was one of the few VHSs that I owned when I was a kid, so I rewatched it so many times, but I hadn't seen it in years, and whenever I went looking for the Blu-ray release, I realized it wasn't out. And this is actually the whole reason I'm making this list. This was the first movie that I had on the list. Like I said, just traveling around the country with your brothers, filming animals, trying to make a documentary just on your own. I just love this movie. If you've never seen this movie, check it out. Next up is The Abyss. Okay, so here's the thing with The Abyss. There is a 1080p version out there. It's been on HBO, so there is a high-def version of The Abyss. Here's the thing with director James Cameron. He's been stating that he's been working on a 4K release for The Abyss, but he's also talked about Blu-rays for The Abyss for the last few years that we've never seen. Allegedly, it already exists. We've seen it because, as I said, it's on some streaming service, so I don't really know why they made the decision to not release it. It's under review for James Cameron. Supposedly, the Blu-ray was supposed to be released last year in 2019, or the 4K. I think they were just going to bypass Blu-ray completely and just go directly to 4K. But either way, we still have not seen The Abyss, which is a great movie, and I would love to rewatch it because I haven't seen it in over a decade. And another James Cameron movie, True Lies. This is in the same boat as The Abyss. There is a 1080p version that exists, and you can watch it on HBO streaming. Well, I don't know if you still can, but that's the last time I watched it. That version does exist. A high-def restoration of True Lies exists. But again, not on a Blu-ray physical release. I don't know. So from looking into this a little bit further, main reports say that it's been waiting for James Cameron's approval for the physical release of True Lies since 2018. 2018! It's been almost 2 years. That's ridiculous. What is with James? You know he's not filming Avatar 2, 3, 4, and 5. I mean, he could take some time to just review some of his old films and give the okay on releasing them. I want to buy True Lies and add it to my shelf. I want to buy The Abyss and add it to my shelf. How are neither of these movies released? Makes no sense to me. True Lies is Arnold Schwarzenegger's top 5 movies. It is his top 5 movies, in my opinion. True Lies is a top-tier Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and there's no Blu-ray release. What? Next up is Titan AE. This, of course, was a major box office bomb. Fox's 2D animation department basically shut down while this thing was in production. It went bankrupt even before the movie even came out. I think what they ended up doing was they ended up getting a separate studio to finish the animation and then release it. And obviously it wasn't marketed much because there was no faith in completing this. Now, I like Titan AE. I like the animation style. Again, this is directed by Don Bluth. If you don't know who Don Bluth is, Don Bluth directed American Tail and Land Before Time. So he was really big in the 80s. Also did Secret of the Nymph. So these are some movies that I grew up with. Don Bluth's style is dark. He has a very unique style. And even in a sci-fi movie, you can still feel that style come across. And I think Titan AE has a good story to it. I like that they threw in some computer animation into the 2D animation. I think it worked pretty well. It's not the best movie ever. I'm not going to say it's in my favorite movies, but I think it's underrated. I think it's pretty good. I enjoyed it, and I can't believe there's no Blu-ray for this. Idiocracy. So this is directed by Mike Judge, who was the director of Office Space, which I love Office Space, especially since I've worked in an office now, and I identify with that movie. But anybody who goes out in society can identify with Idiocracy, because sometimes I feel like I'm living it. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way as well. This is it's funny that this one just bombed in the theater, but it gained a huge cult following on home release. And apparently the studio knew that. That's why they didn't market it. It made I remember I looked it up earlier. It was like $500,000 in the theater, just $500,000, which is ridiculously low. They probably didn't even show it in a bunch of theaters. It's essentially a direct-to-video release. There is a DVD version of Idiocracy, which I do own. But with how much money Idiocracy made in its home release, so it made back its budget times like 10, I think, in home release. I don't know why they wouldn't just release this on Blu-ray. As I said, somehow it feels more timely now. Crocodile Hunter Collision Course. Now, I grew up watching Steve Irwin, the Crocodile Hunter. I'm almost 100% sure that I've seen every single documentary episode of anything he's ever put out. Because when I was a kid, I just watched all of it. He had so much charisma. He was just a real likable guy. And whenever this movie came out, I was like, I have to go see this. Now, the main plot of this movie is really dumb. There's like the CIA is like trying to find like a satellite that landed in Australia, and Crocodile ate it, and they're trying to track it down. So the movie's kind of split into two parts, where you have like Crocodile Hunter Steve Irwin going around, and you get documentary style footage from that, and then you have the other half of the movie that's a completely different tone, which is just these two CIA operatives going around Australia trying to get the satellite back. And it kind of feels like Kangaroo Jack, which is a terrible, terrible comparison, but it does kind of feel like that. It's very cheesy, bad. That was very forgettable. The only thing I remember about it was basically the good parts, which was the parts with Steve Irwin. And I'd love to rewatch that again. I do own the DVD, but I would love to see a HD restoration of this. I think that would be great. Especially there's like a lot of love for the Crocodile Hunter these days. A lot of kids who grew up with him, like myself, they would totally buy Crocodile Hunter Collision Course just because they like Steve Irwin. The movie, again, it's not that great. It doesn't really matter. I wish this was released on Blu-ray. Timeline is a movie that starred Paul Walker and is based on the Michael Crichton book of the same name. I'm a big Michael Crichton fan. For those who don't know, Michael Crichton, basically, he's the writer of Jurassic Park. So that kind of gives you an idea. And he always writes kind of thoughtful sci-fi, books, and I've read several of them. And Timeline, the book's way better than the movie. The movie is not that great. The main reason I'm putting on this list is I'm just surprised that there is no Blu-ray of this. It's like I said, it's a fairly average movie, and I pretty much brain dumped most of it. So if I rewatched it, I'm gonna be like watching it again for the first time because I don't really remember much about it. I'm really just surprised it never saw a Blu-ray release. And Astronaut Farmer, starring Billy Bob Thornton. A lot of people probably don't remember this movie. I mainly remember this movie because, again, I worked at Blockbuster when this was released, and it wasn't in theaters very long, and I guess a lot of people didn't see it. And when it came out on home video, I don't know if they had a marketing push for it, or what, but at the store, we only got 8 copies of this. And for the first 2.5 months this was out, we were rented out of it all the time. And people would legit yell at me and get angry that it was out. And why'd you only get 8 copies? Like, I have the power to get more copies of it. That's the main reason I remember Astronaut Farmer. God. Next up is what's eating Gilbert Grape. Well, what's eating him is that there's no Blu-ray release of the movie. That's such a stupid joke. So this was released in Region B, but there was no North American release. I don't know how that happened. This has Johnny Depp and Leonardo DiCaprio. It's a pretty well-known movie. I don't understand why this was never released on Blu-ray in North America. That was kind of shocking to me. It's not one of my favorite movies. It's not even a movie I watch very often. I think I've only seen it once or twice, maybe. It's not a bad movie, but considering how well known it is, I can't believe this movie is just not out on Blu-ray. It makes no sense to me. Next up is Cocoon. So I will preface with Cocoon was actually released in 2010 on Blu-ray, but I'm going to caveat with this. I don't know if they just didn't make that many of it. If you try and find it on eBay or Amazon, it's going for like almost $100. So clearly they didn't make that many copies of it. And the sequel, Cocoon 2, was never released at all. So I don't understand why that happened. I like Cocoon. I think Cocoon's a good movie. It's about a retirement home and aliens and basically a fountain of youth and the pool that these, I love Cocoon. I think Cocoon's a fun movie. It's a fun sci-fi, and there's not that many movies that like focus on the older population, and I think that movie did a great job of just showing you, hey, look, older people have all these cool stories and all these cool experiences, and society just, kind of just treats them like garbage, and as outcasts, and I just love the idea of the movie. Cocoon 2, I could take it or leave it. I got where they were going for with that one, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just surprised neither one of these released on Blu-ray. Why would you not release a 2-pack of Cocoon and Cocoon 2 on Blu-ray? It seems like a natural thing to do. Next up is Small Soldiers, otherwise known as Toy Story for older kids. That's, at least when I was a kid, that's how I viewed it. I was like, oh, this is like Toy Story, but for older kids. Because the toys try and, murder the kids. But it's not like on the same levels like Child's Play or Chucky or anything like that. There were parts of Small Soldiers that I thought were really creepy. I was never scared at it. I was a little bit older when I watched it, so I was never creeped out by it. But I could imagine if you were a younger kid, six or 7, being pretty creeped out by that movie. But Small Soldiers is... I can't believe this has no Blu-ray release. Again, this is a Region B, so it was released in Europe on Blu-ray. But as far as I can tell, no North American release for Small Soldiers. I don't understand that. I know it's on some streaming services because I actually watched it last year. I know for sure. Now, whether I saw it on Netflix or one of the other streaming services, I can't point to. But clearly there is an HD version of this movie out there. So why is there no Blu-ray release for this? Next up is some sports movies. We're going to start with Angels in the Outfield. How? Angels in the Outfield. Everybody remembers this movie. If you were a kid in the 90s, you remember Angels in the Outfield. It had Danny Glover and Christopher Lloyd. So you had Doc Brown in this movie and Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a kid. I don't know if this was his very first movie, but this is definitely one of his first movies. I think he was like 12 or something in this. A lot of people even forget that he was the kid in this movie because... Inception's mainly what I think about now when I think of him. But he's a great actor. And how is there no Angels in the Outfield? There were a couple sequels. I remember there was like Angels in the Infield and Angels in the End Zone or something like that. They were like straight to video movies. But Angels in the Outfield is a high quality, big release, theatrical release movie that kids from the 90s remember. And there is, as far as I can tell, no HD restoration of this. I haven't found it on any streaming services. I've not seen it in years. There is no Blu-ray release for this. It's owned by Disney. I was thinking that they'd probably put it on Disney Plus when Disney Plus started, but it's not on there. I guess eventually the movie could come out on Blu-ray.
Hey, it could happen.
Next up is Little Giants. So this was, again, one of the few VHSs I owned when I was a kid. I owned a lot of the sports 90s kids movies. And so I watched those a lot. And this was no exception. I just like the idea of this movie. It's very stereotypical. You got the misfits and they're up against, the kids who are the MVPs, and it's an underdog story. It's very by the numbers. There's nothing really out of left field with this, but I just remember it being a lot of fun when I was a kid watching it. I haven't seen it in years and years. I do remember the Hot Hands Hanen, the dude who had to get the glue in order to catch the football. But then he realized he could catch toilet paper. In this one scene, he visualizes toilet paper in order to catch it, which is like so timely here in 2020 when we're all in quarantine and everybody's buying all the toilet paper. This movie was ahead of its time. Next up is my last sports movies, or my last three. Mighty Ducks 1, 2, and 3. Now, again, I'm going to caveat with this. These were actually released on Blu-ray, but they were Disney Club exclusive releases. So if you were part of Disney Club, was the only way you really had access to buy these. You can buy them on the secondhand market, and some people got them, kept them in the cellophane and sell them new. But I mean, when you end up spending like $40 a piece on these, I mean, you're looking at like almost $100 in order to get 1, 2, and 3 on Blu-ray, which is ridiculous. So yes, technically this was released. Now I believe it's on Disney Plus now, because I know I recently rewatched them and I think it was on Disney Plus. So again, there is an HD restoration or release of Mighty Ducks, which a lot of kids remember, again, from the 90s. So it's cool you can at least see them, but I wish Disney would just release the 3-pack of the Mighty Ducks for like $20, $25. Decent price. That'd be fine, and I'd totally buy it because I love the Mighty Ducks. Yep, last couple nostalgia picks. I saved all my nostalgia picks towards the end. 3 Ninjas. Yeah, this movie is not very good, but it doesn't matter. I remember watching it so much whenever I was younger. I had 3 Ninjas, and then there was 3 Ninjas Knuckle Up and 3 Ninjas Kick Back, and I watched all 3 of those a lot. There was a 4th one they released, High Noon at Mega Mountain, which had Hulk Hogan with Power Rangers. Yeah, it's as dumb as it sounds. I hated that one. But I do remember liking 3 Ninjas, Knuckle Up, and Kick Back. And if I watch those movies again, even though I haven't seen them in more than a decade, I'd probably remember everything that happened as I was watching, because I've just seen them so many times. Again, I'm not saying that these are great movies. These are more nostalgia picks. It'd be nice to have a Blu-ray release of 3 Ninjas. I'd totally buy it. Springing boarding off of 3 Ninjas, we'll go to Surf Ninjas. Quan Su, dude. When I say Quan Su dude and I get a Quan Su dude back, I know these people know. They remember Surf Ninjas. Of course, I probably just sound like a lunatic saying something that makes no sense to any normal person. But Surf Ninjas was a lot of fun. Again, it's very 90s. Rob Schneider was in this, and he was a ginger for some reason, a fake ginger. He had some of the funniest lines in the movie for sure. There was a kid who had a Game Gear that could tell the future or alter reality, or the powers were never really explained, but that was always cool. My buddy had a Game Gear, and that battery life was like an hour. So the whole time I was watching the movie, I was like, for sure this kid's battery is going to run out, and it never really did. I always called BS on that. And then you also had the guy who was the main character, who was also the guy. What was his name? Keto, I think it was Keto from Ninja Turtles 2. So that same kid is in this, and he was actually a stunt double. He's one of the turtles in the first movie. So that's kind of cool. I don't know. I can watch Surf Ninjas. I've rewatched Surf Ninjas before. I have it on DVD, but again, there's no Blu-ray release of Surf Ninjas. I would totally watch it if there was, though. And last, and maybe least, like Mike. A lot of people, you guys got to remember this movie. It had Little Bow Wow and that kid from Stuart Little, or Jerry Maguire talked about, the size of your head or how much your head weighs. Yeah, I don't I just remember as a kid from Stuart Little. But like Mike, he gets shoes and he turns into Michael Jordan. He has the abilities of Michael Jordan or whatever. And he gets drafted by the NBA, and he's in the NBA, and that's kind of the movie. One thing that's funny is that even though it's called Like Mike, Michael Jordan is not in sight. He's not even in this movie. Like, he was in Space Jam. He was in Space Jam, but they couldn't get him for a single appearance in this movie that's called Like Mike. He is basically the reason the movie exists, to be like Mike. There's no Blu-ray release of this either. I wish there was. I remember Crispin Glover being a bad guy. He's the one who runs the foster home or whatever, and or the orphanage or whatever it was. Again, I've not seen this movie in more than a decade, so I don't remember much about it. I would buy the Blu-ray if it came out. Again, it's kind of a nostalgia pick. So, but yeah, that's it. So that's kind of my list. It's very scattershot, as I said. It was in no particular order. And as I said before, some of them have seen Blu-ray releases. Others have not. As I said before, there's a variety of reasons why that may be. I don't know. But as of filming this, none of those movies I named have had North American Blu-ray releases. And if they were released, I would most likely buy them. Because, as you can tell, I like physical media. I like owning it. I like owning the movie and being able to put it in when I want to, and not having to rely on a streaming service to make deals with companies in order to have it on their streaming service for a couple months and take it off, and then you can't get it. So definitely a big proponent to physical releases. If you guys have not checked out my case for physical media video, that movie's done very well, and I really appreciate everybody for checking that one out. And I am continuing the collection videos. I'm sorry I'm really slow on those. As I said, I've been focusing on bigger projects and cooler stuff. So this was a video I really enjoyed making, and really a video that I've been planning for a couple months. And instead of just doing anything too crazy, I was just like, you know what? I'll just make a list and I'll just talk about it. And that's what I did. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. There's probably some more movies that are out there that I missed that I would probably want on Blu-ray that have not been released. And obviously your list is probably going to be different because there may be other movies that you guys are looking forward to that maybe I didn't know about. So if that's the case, comment and let me know. Again, I want to thank subscribers because you guys are awesome. Thank you for checking out this video. And if you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, share, do all the YouTube stuff, or don't. I'm not a beggar. I'm YouTube64, and I always tell you the truth.